Tokyo. A city of millions, a sea of endless, shimmering lights. It's a place where you can be surrounded by a constant hum of life, yet feel completely, utterly alone. Sony knew this feeling all too well. After a painful breakup, he found himself adrift, wandering through the glowing streets of the city he once loved. He felt empty, directionless, lost in the noise and the crowds. His days began to blur, one indistinguishable from the next, each one a little grayer than the last. Sony found himself drowning in a haze of smoke and a profound silence, the only company a face on a screen, a digital ghost of what once was. The sound of shared laughter had faded, replaced by muted memories that played on a loop in his mind. Life, which had once felt so full of promise, now felt like an immense weight, pressing down on him harder with each passing day. He was just another shadow moving through a city that never slept, but for him, sleep offered no rest. One particularly heavy night, the four walls of his apartment felt like they were closing in. He couldn't stand the suffocating silence any longer. He had to get out. He stepped onto the streets, and as if on cue, the rain began to fall. It wasn't a storm, just a gentle, persistent drizzle that made the streetlights shimmer in the puddles like scattered jewels, ghosts of color on the dark asphalt. He pulled his hood up, the cool night air a stark contrast to the stuffiness he'd left behind. He lit a cigarette, the tiny ember a small point of light in the overwhelming darkness, hoping for something, anything, to change. But the emptiness remained, a familiar ache in his chest. And then, a sound. It was faint, but it cut through the gentle patter of the rain. A weak, trembling meow. It was so fragile, so desperate. Sony stopped, his head turning, trying to pinpoint the source. He looked around, his eyes scanning the darkened alleyways and shadowed doorways. And there, huddled in a dark, wet corner, he saw it. A tiny kitten, no bigger than his hand. It was completely soaked, shivering uncontrollably. A fragile little being against the harshness of the city. He felt a pull he hadn't felt in a long time. He knelt down, the damp pavement seeping through his jeans. For a moment he just watched the tiny creature, its eyes wide with fear. He hesitated, a dozen thoughts racing through his mind. But then, slowly, he reached out his hand, palm open, a silent offering of peace. The kitten flinched at first, cowering back into the shadows. But then, driven by cold and hunger, it took a tentative step forward. And another. And then, in that one singular moment, it felt as if the entire city, with all its noise and chaos, went completely silent. The kitten brushed its tiny, wet head against his fingers. And that small, simple touch ignited something within him. Something he thought was long extinguished. Warmth. A genuine, uncomplicated warmth that spread from his hand right through to his heart. Without a second thought, Sony gently scooped up the shivering furball and tucked it safely inside the hood of his sweatshirt, a makeshift sanctuary from the cold rain. They walked home together through the glistening streets, two solitary figures who had just found each other in the vastness of Tokyo. Back in his apartment, the silence felt different. It was no longer empty. He carefully crafted a small bed from an old, soft blanket and placed the kitten down. Exhausted, it curled into a tiny ball and instantly fell asleep. Watching it, a real, genuine smile touched Sony's lips for the first time in what felt like an eternity. A small crack of light had broken through the darkness. The days that followed were different. Mornings suddenly had a purpose again. There was a little mouth to feed, a bowl of food to prepare alongside his own morning coffee. A tiny, furry friend was always there waiting, a silent companion that didn't demand anything but gave everything. The oppressive silence that had haunted his apartment was gone, replaced by the soft pitter-patter of tiny paws, the gentle purr of a contented cat, and the occasional playful meow. Sony was no longer alone. He named the kitten Daijin, and with its arrival, it was as if color had started to bleed back into his black and white world. The simple routines of caring for another living being anchored him. Playing with a piece of string, watching Daijin chase dust bunnies, feeling the comforting weight of a sleeping cat on his chest. These small moments became the new highlights of his day. They chipped away at the loneliness, piece by piece, filling the void that the breakup had left behind. He started to notice the world again, the changing seasons, the faces of people passing by. He was slowly, gently, being pulled back into the stream of life. One sunny afternoon, while out for a walk with Daijin safely in a carrier, a familiar figure appeared in the distance. It was his ex. For a split second, his heart leaped into his throat, that old, familiar pang of anxiety and sadness. He braced himself for the wave of pain he expected to follow, but it never came. Instead, as she passed by, he found himself offering a small, simple smile. A smile of acceptance, of peace. He realized that some wounds don't ever fully disappear, but time, and a little bit of unexpected love, teaches the heart where to place them, how to live with them without letting them define you. They become a part of your story, not the whole story. That evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sony and Daijin climbed a small hill that overlooked the sprawling metropolis of Tokyo. He sat down, holding Daijin close in his arms, feeling its soft purr vibrate against his chest. As the city lights below began to flicker to life, one by one, like a galaxy being born on Earth, he felt a profound sense of calm. The wind was a bit chilly, but his heart was warm. Loneliness was no longer his enemy. It was just a feeling, and feelings pass. He had learned that one friend, even a very small, furry one, truly can change an entire life. He looked down at the cat, nestled in his arms, then back out at the endless city. He was no longer the same man who had wandered these streets, lost and broken. He had set out that rainy night simply looking for a distraction, and he'd found a cat. But in truth, he had found so much more. He had found himself. Tokyo was still crowded, still loud, still a city of millions. But the silence within him was different now. It was no longer a vast, empty chasm. It was peaceful. It was calm. As Daijin purred softly, a steady, rhythmic reassurance against his heart, life for Sony began to breathe again. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this story with us. If it resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel for more content that we hope brings a little light into your day. Sometimes you're not lost in the dark. You're just waiting for the light.